You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Let's talk about the fact that Joe Biden still has not picked a vice president. He has already said that there are 4 black women who are he considering. Well, we know Senator Kamala Harris, Congresswoman Val Demings, former UN Ambassador Susan Rice, as well as Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Now, a recent poll finds that 60% of Millennial and Generation Z voters who are in key swing states say it's important that Joe Biden choose a black woman to be his running mate. That would be a little upsetting to the people who've been pushing Senator Elizabeth Warren, as well as those who are pushing Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth and others. Now, if Biden picks a black woman to be his vice president, not only is it predicted that he could be a presumptive Democratic nominee amongst young voters, but also white women and other key groups. The poll was done by Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies. And according to the poll, a total of 54% of minority women and a plurality of white women and college-educated women also agree it is important that a black woman be chosen. The poll was done on behalf of Higher Heights. They commissioned the poll. Joining us right now is Cornell Belcher, the president of Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies, and Glynda Carr, president and CEO of Higher Heights. Glynda, I'll start with you first. Why did y'all want this particular poll commissioned?
Yeah, so, Higher Heights for America is a national organization building the collective political power of black women from the voting booth to elected office. So, Roland, you know that black women lead the road to 2020, both as voters and as candidates. And so we thought it was important to back what we've been saying in the conversations we've been having with black women in our network about not only our interest in seeing a black woman as a vice president and the importance of what that this means from a historical perspective, but frankly, at the end of the day, this election is going to be about turnout and turnout outside the margins. And we've been saying that not only does a black woman VP candidate excite black women, data has already pointed to, and races over the last couple of election cycles have actually shown that black women candidates are not only the building blocks to a winning coalition as voters, but they actually are candidates that can build a coalition of voters that are diverse. And we wanted data to back that up. In this poll, in partnership with Cornell Belcher and Karen Finney over at Brilliant Corners, actually points to not only that white women think that he should be looking at a black woman vice president and running mate, but young voters and minorities as a totality. So that shows that the diversity that black women bring as voters to the ticket as a candidate, as well as voters. So I'm so excited for Cornell to spend a little time digging into it. At the end of the day, a black woman will create, I think, the energy for us, not only to black women to go to the polls, but also organize their networks to the polls. And that includes bringing white women and young people with us.
So, Cornell, you and I have talked a number of times, and you've made it perfectly clear to Democrats, stop chasing these white, suburban, conservative women and turn out more of your own people, because otherwise you're going to get your feelings hurt every 4 years. When you look at these numbers here, so break down for us these particular poll numbers and what it reveals specifically as it comes to the need for Biden to pick a black woman as VP.
Well, thanks so much, Roland. It's good to be with you again. And before I start, again, I just want to give a shout out to Glynda and Higher Heights. And if this is not an organization that you and your followers aren't supporting, please do, because the work they're doing to empower black women across this country is really important for us now and is really important in the future. So if you're not supporting Higher Heights, do so as soon as possible. That said, Roland, look, it's not even close in the numbers. When we did this across the battleground states, and as you know, all the states are important. But the truth of the matter is, this election is going to be determined in 7 or 8 states the way it always is. And so when you look at those battleground states and look at the voters most important for Biden, sort of take out certain Trump voters because they shouldn't be a part of this conversation. The question isn't even close. By 27 points. voters in these battleground states agree that it's important for Biden to pick an African American woman compared to a white woman. Only 21% of voters in these battleground states agree that it's important for Joe Biden to pick a white woman, while a 48% plurality in these battleground states agree that it's important for him to pick an African American woman. But beyond that, I think there's also potential backlash if they pick a white woman, because to see it in the data, because 43% of these voters, a plurality of these voters in the battleground states, disagree that it's important for him to pick a white woman, and the intensity around this, on the strongly agree that you should pick an African American woman, is twice of the intensity of it is around whether or not he should pick a white woman. So when you look at the key cohorts in the electorate, particularly, look, you know as well, Roland, the way college women broke in 2018 for Democrats helped Democrats pick up seats all across the country that they hadn't won before, helped make the suburbs blue in a way that they hadn't been before. And when you look at 47% of college women agree that he should pick an African American woman, compared to only 20% agree that he should pick a white woman. And you look at the young people, where Biden has had a hard time, and not only Biden but Hillary also, coming off of Barack Obama, Democrats have had a hard time energizing and growing and sort of energizing and mobilizing young voters. When you look at sort of how broadly and intensely millennials and Gen Zs agree that he should pick an African American woman, I think it would be problematic if he didn't. So not only is it's in the strategic interest, I think, for Democrats to put a diverse ticket out there, a ticket with an African American woman on it.
I was having this conversation with some folks, and I told them this. It is very simple, Glynda and Cornell, that Joe Biden, frankly, doesn't have a choice. And the reason I said, now, granted, he has a choice, but the reason I say Joe Biden doesn't have a choice is because black people saved his ass. Without black people, he ain't the nominee. And if he doesn't pick a black woman to be his VP choice, what he then does is he then solidifies the one thing that black people continue to say is, we're tired of being political sharecroppers for Democratic candidates, meaning we save your behind when you're in trouble, and then you don't reward black people when it's time. And so I remember when Angela Peoples was on here the other day talking about, she was advancing the idea of Senator Elizabeth Warren. I said, I understand. I said, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to unleash a whole lot of vitriol from black folks saying, oh, so we save your butt, and now you can't pick one of us when you have eminently qualified black women to be the choice. Glynda, your thoughts on that?
So 48 years ago, 48 years ago, in the summer of 1972, Shirley Chisholm was preparing to go to the Democratic convention where her name was entered on the floor to be the first African-American first woman to ever have their name entered into nomination. Fast forward to 48 years, you now have, not only you had a black woman that was running as a president candidate, you also now have, as you mentioned, Roland, not one black woman to pick from, that there is a list that he said for this past week, there's a list of 6 that people have been talking about. If he doesn't choose a black woman, he's going to have to stand up and explain why he did not choose a black woman from a qualified list. I mean, everyone keeps asking me, who is the black woman, right? And I was like, literally any of these women, they all come from different experiences, lived experiences, qualifications, and they all each bring something unique to the ticket and something unique to the administration. So it's going to be a hard day when he doesn't announce a black woman for him to actually explain why he hasn't, and then at the same time determine how you're going to create the momentum you're going to need from this important constituency to not only vote. I think it is clear that African Americans are going to vote in this cycle. There's a question about, and I'll let Cornell speak to this, the difference between 2016 and 2008. And we need to grow those. We need to grow those margins from a voter turnout, and you can't do that without like particularly Black women, organizing their networks.
Cornell.
Look, I think that's spot on, but I want your audience to understand that we're at a really important moment in this country potentially, and we are having conversations about justice and equality, and diversity in the ways that we hadn't. In the polling data, you now see majorities of white voters think racism is a big problem in this country. And go back to 2008, you had a plurality of white voters in battleground states who actually thought reverse discrimination was a bigger deal than racism. So America's sort of slowly but surely begin to sort of open up and have conversations about the importance of diversity. And I want to say that because an African-American woman is not just simply what Black voters want. In these battleground states, it is what a plurality of the most important groups that's going to build Joe Biden's coalition want. So to me, strategically, it makes all the sense in the world. This is what voters want. This is a moment where voters are demanding change. They're looking for more diversity. They're looking for more expansive voices. And Black women are leading in that forefront. So to me, strategically, it's a no-brainer.
And then, Roland, and I would also add to that, it is not just this polling data that points to that. It is the recent election. So in 2018, 5 Black women were elected to Congress, and those 4 of those 5 Black women, represent districts that aren't districts of color. Particularly Lauren Underwood. She represents a district that is only 3% Black, which means that she overwhelmingly not only won in a Democratic primary, but in a general election with white voters. Lisa Blunt Rochester, who's on his VP selection committee, she's a congressional member that represents Delaware. Delaware only actually has 1 representative, House representative, which means she runs statewide in a state where she has to, she has galvanized a diverse electorate to vote for her not once, but several times.
This is going to be obviously an interesting decision that Joe Biden will have to make. He's going to make it soon. We're almost near the end of July. August is coming up. Democrats will be having their virtual convention, and so we certainly shall see what happens next. Let me also make this clear as well. And this is going to be important too, Glynda and Cornell. Democrats had better put their dollars where their mouth is. And that is, if you want to win, you better turn out your people, which means you better spend money with Black media, Black-owned media, where Black people are. Don't assume that we watch the Ellen show. We also watch other shows with Black folks. And that's part of the deal there as well, Cornell, in terms of not only when you talk about how you want to get people out, you better know where we are and how we respond as well. And too often Democrats have not done that, and they pay the price, and then it's like, damn, we should have done something. And I say, listen to Black people, listen to Black pollsters, listen to Black political analysts, listen to Black campaign strategists, because we got a better idea about Black people than these white folks. Cornell, final word.
Roland, to be Black in America, you have to be able to make your way through multiple communities in a way that some of my white colleagues don't have to. And this is something that you and I have talked about a long time, and I hope to come back on the show because there's a racial reckoning conversation that's going on across this country, and we need to have that racial reckoning conversation also in the progressive community, because there are some things within the progressive community that are also institutionally racist, and we need to have a reckoning about what's happening within the progressive community and within these progressive organizations.
Well, just let me know when you want to do it. We here 5 days a week. We always ready.
Thank you, brother.
All right, appreciate it. Cornell Belcher, Glynda Carr, we appreciate it as well. Let's go to my panel here. Eric, I want to start with you. I mean, the data is the data. And the reality is, when everybody was talking about Senator Amy Klobuchar and was sitting there going, really? Like, really? And then they're throwing out every other name. And so here's the deal. This is not 20 years ago where you say, well, you know, you don't have an African-American woman who's elected statewide and blah, blah, blah. No, we got United States Senator. We got a former United States Ambassador and National Security Advisor. You got a woman who was a sheriff in Orlando, now a member of Congress. You've got a woman who's the mayor of Atlanta. The excuses are all gone.
Yeah, effectively they are, right? We know very well that data is an extension of currency. Also have an understanding that data is effectively what is used when we talk about the decennial census for businesses to make decisions about where they're going to place their business, if that's a good fit or not. So data has made a very pronounced place in all of our lives. And I think what this also shows in with those battleground states that Dr. Belcher shared is that 3 of those battleground states were Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. We take our minds back to 2016, understanding that it was about 77,000 votes that separated winning from losing. And we know that a lot of that was voter suppression. This data informs that there is an activated group of 18 to 39-year-olds that say that putting a black woman, specifically a black woman, on the ticket would cause them to be more engaged in the vote, which means that they can then catch fire to the people to their right and to their left. It's a win-win. So I think that at this point, particularly as we're battling so many different pieces that this regime has laid to bear on all of its American citizenry, that the Biden campaign, and I hope there's somebody that has brought this data forward to them and somebody that's going to be talking about it as a priority on a daily basis. I think it's imperative that the Biden campaign go ahead and step up and make the announcement about who is going to be the black woman VP choice.
Reese.
Yes, I mean, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. But I definitely want to caution the Biden campaign against picking and choosing which polling they want to go with, because across the board, the most important metric that has consistently come back in favor of black women is the enthusiasm metric. Yes, you are going to get a certain number of people out no matter what, just by default of not being Donald Trump. But that number is just flat out not enough. We see that Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, is actually running behind Hillary Clinton's percentages with black voters at this point. And that has been consistent across the polls for months now. The latest one that I've seen from NBC has him at 78%. So black voters bailed him out in his campaign. They resuscitated his campaign. But black voters, a good portion of them, are still saying, well, we have a chip that we want to cash in, and that chip is a black woman VP. And guess what? This is not a matter of just symbolism. Black women have the credentials. Y'all know I've made no bones about Senator Kamala Harris being my pick, and I have argued very fiercely for that. But the bottom line is, it's not just a Senator Kamala Harris issue at this point. He has very publicly dangled multiple black women, and even as recently as Monday on Joy Reid's show, saying that he has 4 black women that are in the final stretch. And so it is going to be impossible for him and his campaign or his non-black woman potential VP pick to explain day in and day out to black people why all of those women were passed over. And there is no goddamn excuse for it.
Great.
Well, you know, Reese, Eric, and Roland, never underestimate the stupidity of the Democratic Party. And it's unfortunate because the political immaturity of the American Negro continues to strengthen over the years, over the generations. I think if you took everybody's name off of their platform and their policy platform and had black people picked based on an analysis of the platforms and then unveiled the race of the person they picked, there'd be a lot of people who would pick Elizabeth Warren. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about demographics. We're talking about a photo op, basically, and that's where America's people generally vote, and that's where black people vote. Like I said, the political maturity of the American Negro has come closer and closer to the general political maturity of everybody in the country. And as I say this, Donald Trump's still leading among white voters. Let's be very clear. Many of the polls show him 55% or more, somewhere around there, with whites with no college degree. So he's trying to get the seniors and the college-educated whites are trying to, they're trying to pick those off. But at the same time, we also see that Trump has made a little inroad into Latinx voters. That's important. And as you say, Reese, you don't see the same percentage supporting Trump in black communities, but all you need is 2 or 3% in a couple of battleground states if you get it close enough to steal. So as far as I'm concerned, I agree with Cornell. I agree with Glynda, any of them, with one exception. With one exception. Susan Rice, the Obama administration's foreign policy toward Africa is indefensible. It is anti-African, and we should be ashamed to consider anyone who backed AFRICOM as heavily and did all that damage in Africa. So Susan Rice notwithstanding, in fact, I don't even know why she's even on the short list. And I think maybe that's the Biden administration are trying to get, okay, we get a black woman, but we need a black woman who's closer to our neoliberal policies. Boy, if Elizabeth Warren was black, I'd say put her on the ticket. But since people vote based on what they see, based on what they've read, just pick a black woman and so we can get this election on and get this thing done and get this Klansman out to office.
But hold up now. I have to respectfully disagree with you, Dr. Carr, because I am very, very, very well researched on Senator Elizabeth Warren and on Senator Kamala Harris. As y'all saw last week, Senator Elizabeth Warren's surrogate wasn't even familiar with her diversity statistics. And so
I'm not talking about diversity, I'm talking about demographics.
Policy-oriented, and people can go out there and Google 20 for 20 credentials, not cosmetics. I make a completely substantive argument along with Star Jones. We had an hour-and-a-half conversation on this topic. And so, no, it's absolutely not a matter of just putting race over credentials. It's a matter of this is a situation where we can have both.
Pick Kamala. I don't have any problem with it. No. And that sister last week was not prepared to talk about her campaign. So, no, and let me be very clear. I'm not talking about demographics. In other words, what I'm saying, people are voting demographic. They're voting for the color of the candidate. They're not reading policy. You are. I am. Reese is. Eric is. Roland is. Cornell is. Sure. Glynda is. And that tiny group of black people are going to do it. But many of our people, like you said, there's an enthusiasm piece. Hey, I have no problem.
So, Greg, are you saying that if you stripped the names off of the resumes, policy positions of all the folks there, that if that was the determining factor, what would end up happening is that Warren would get picked over Harris and the others?
I'm not saying she would get picked, but I'm saying she'd be competitive. I'm saying she absolutely would be competitive. And I am saying she would be picked before Susan Rice. Hell yes. No question about it. Now, because as far as I'm concerned, none of them have foreign policy portfolio that is so pro-African and African diaspora that would make me leap to them. But again, we're trying to win an election. And we also have to stay focused. Those federal judges, they're going to be in a position to support whatever the judges say that we want are. Absolutely. And he said he's going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. That's fine. So, yeah, but all I'm saying is that Warren would be in the mix if race weren't a factor. But race is a factor. So, no, I'm not. No, the only one I would say I have to hold my nose and vote for is Susan Rice. Because, see, I'm old enough to remember what happened in Libya. I'm old enough to remember then all those Africans getting chased out of Libya into Chad and all those other places, and all these Africans getting sold into enslavement. And I put that right at the feet of Barack Hussein Obama and Susan Rice. So, yeah, other than her, I'm good.
Reese, Erica.
Well, can I just say
I'll say this.
Erica, then Reese. Erica, then Reese.
I'll just say this. Cicely Tyson, in a conversation with Gayle King, it's talked about Black women and our placement in this society and having to look from the fourth rung. It has always stuck with me that we have to look up through the experiences of all other people. But when we are put into positions of power, we lift everyone up because we have that unfortunate view. And I would say that a Black woman being on the ticket is not to placate. It is because Black women are damn well qualified and have actually been doing the work without the position title. So for anyone that would, think that this is just some kind of gesture of goodwill, of good faith, it is really a demand that, as women celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment passing, that Black women were kind of looking with the stank face and thinking to say that we were part of that movement, but we were not recognized. And so, again, the most qualified person to be at that seat of vice president is the person that actually ran for president, but was really, really drugged and judged very harshly than some of her other counterparts. And that would be Senator Kamala Harris, who has just been doing outstanding work for a very long time. So I just wanted to not be known that, Black women are not like a trophy or a prize, but we are actually the race.
Reese.
I absolutely agree. And speaking of gestures, it's amazing to me how white women like Elizabeth Warren get so much credit for gestures and for rhetoric. When you actually dig beneath the surface, there isn't much substance there. There isn't much receipts in terms of the advocacy that they claim to have suddenly discovered during a presidential campaign. And so that is where we reward white women, we reward white people. And I'm not trying to get on your case, Dr. Carr, but I'm just going to say this: we reward white people for gestures and for rhetoric, even though they haven't backed it up. And yet we look at the Black people and we say, why didn't you do more? Even though what they've done is exponentially more impactful and significant and extensive and in-depth than what any of the white people have done. So absolutely, if you look at a resume-based, evidence-based, data-based, results-based, receipts-based decision-making process, then Kamala Harris, number one, stacks up. But I would still put these other Black women ahead of Elizabeth Warren any day of the week. And the bottom line was Elizabeth Warren was rejected by her own people because she never won a race in 19 out of 19 states. And she placed third or below in each of these states, including in her own home state. So she got some things that she got to work out over there on that part. People saying that they don't want a white woman to be VP as much as they want a Black woman. So go on ahead and do the right thing for a change. We know it never happens when it comes to Black women. Nobody ever does right by the Black woman. But for a change, surprise us and give us what you owe us.
That's right.
As I said, the political immaturity of the American Negro is something that we'll probably be writing about for the next 100 years if they're still in the United States. This isn't, please understand, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think that a Biden-Harris ticket wins. I think a Biden-Rice ticket wins. I think a Biden-Black woman ticket wins. But to say that policy wonks are the same as rank and file voters, Joe Biden is the nominee of the Democratic Party because Black people voted our fears. It's very simple.
Right.
Now, and we voted our fears after being rallied in South Carolina by Jim Clyburn, who on this show last week, Roland, said he was standing next to John Lewis and said, I hope Black Lives Matter doesn't, hope they don't take it from us the way that SNCC did. Meaning what? This is the Black politician. What you have is movements translating electoral politics to representative race leaders, individuals who we use as a proxy for the interests of our people. That's what, see, Jim Clyburn said that quick, but if you know the history, you understand what he meant by that is we don't want this thing to get too radical. Is what I'm saying. So I'm not critiquing any of those candidates. What I'm saying is, hell, I'd like an opportunity for somebody like Ayanna Pressley. If you're going to put a congresswoman on there, I have nothing against Val Demings. I think Biden-Demings wins. But I think, Biden-Pressley might win too. In other words, I think that the Black woman is interchangeable, and of course I support the Black. Are you kidding? No question. Of course, Ida B. Wells. I mean, let's go all the way back to the fight to the 19th. Hell, let's go back to Sojourner Truth in the 1850s. Talking about, ain't I a woman? Of course. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the electoral politics of the Democratic Party, which has typically shit on Black people, women and men, and certainly Black women at the bottom of that pyramid. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%, Erica. What I'm saying is that this is a calculus that is being made by a person and a party that is looking at an electoral map and deciding whether or not they're going to risk finally coming into the 21st century. Because Joe Biden is just as likely to play for that mythical unicorn white voter he's been chasing forever, when, as Cornell and them say, you look at the numbers, you see that, yes, they picked off some suburban whites, particularly women. Yes, they picked off a handful of elders, particularly in places like the background states like Florida and other places. But they've lost among the Latinos. They've lost some ground. They've lost a couple of ticks among Black voters. And the energy they will get from a Black woman makes perfect sense. But that's the calculus. We're not talking about the politics of who is owed. This is cold-blooded politics. And I think if they're smart, the cold-blooded politics says, pick the Black woman. We're not disagreeing. We're not disagreeing, but we got to be Well, I'll end with that because I don't have any hope that the American Negro is going to be any more mature than we are right now. I think we reached our peak maturity probably in the late 60s. It's been going downhill since then.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.